NFPL season was another one, the second in a row that had questionable things going on to bookend both ends of the season. Gameplay during the middle of the season seemed just fine. We'll talk about that here in a second as we do a quick recap on the season. But it started shockingly with 6 teams missing from the roster of teams that participated from last year. We saw only 4 teams playing in the Midwest and only 4 playing in the Southwest. And that includes 2 new additions to the league. Detroit Imperial, of course, based out of Detroit, Michigan, and then Santa Fe Gloom in New Mexico added to the Southwest. The saving grace this season for me was the gameplay, including a bicycle kick that didn't count in the very first game of the Southwest Division for Santa Fe Gloom. Amazingly, the referee pulled that one back against Colorado Futsal Academy. But very, very interesting game 1 to get things started. Let's stay focused on the Southwest Division. It was an amazing beacon of light for the league. The style of play, the level of play. This was definitely the stronger division of the 2, in my opinion. It was absolutely insane. I called it the Wild West at several points during the season because no one was mathematically out of it. Everyone was exchanging results. Brusa would beat a team, then lose to them, vice versa. Colorado, Flagship, and Gloom all kind of going through this back and forth battle amongst all 4 of themselves. It made for fantastic gameplay, insane crowds, and even some controversy with those crowds later on when we hit the playoffs, but more to come on that. The table was anyone's season till the last day. Ultimately, on the final day of the regular season, Colorado only needed a tie to lock up the Southwest Division, and they got that tie with Flagship in a very hotly contested match that ended 3-3 in the very last game of the night on the final day of the regular season. Who can ask for more? Meanwhile, Grand Rapids OLe in the Midwest Division ran roughshod to start the season, beginning undefeated in the first half of the season, and then cooled off. Meanwhile, Futsal Factory struggled out of the gate, and then had a very strong finish with maximum momentum going into the playoffs that saw them take second place behind Grand Rapids, even pulling their first victory over Grand Rapids since they were rebranded in 2021 from the Ann Arbor Mud Puppies. They finally saw their first points against Grand Rapids during the regular season and then got themselves set up for that playoff. Now, what was interesting about this side is Cadence not able to come away with much in the terms of points, only 1 singular point over the course of the whole season. Detroit Imperial, who did double duty this year and participated in not only NFPL, but the Futsal Champions Series, where they were champions of that series over the likes of teams like Lansing City, Midwest, other NFPL alum that have moved on to other things. They actually played very, very well during the regular season, and I don't think that their record in this table gives them justice for what they did in the NFPL, but they were on everyone's heels, snipping at everyone's heels and in every game. So they definitely disrupted the table in a lot of ways for these other 2 teams that ended up making the semifinals. So then we have our semifinal set. We're looking at Gloom versus Colorado, being hosted in Colorado. The fans were actually so rowdy that they were throwing things at Gloom players and getting really, really high energy atmosphere behind the bench. To a point, the referees had to stop the match and move the fans away from the benches to the opposite side. Very, very peculiar situation. Never seen anything like it before, but the referees doing everything they can to keep control of this game, and sometimes that means outside interference. Gloom just shooting off to a rip-roaring start in this game, but ultimately they would lose a large lead that would come down to penalty kicks in the semifinals, and it was it was absolute drama. It ended 9-8 in the penalties, just back and forth, back and forth. One team would miss, the next team would save. It was just absolutely nuts, and made for a really late night for those of us on East Coast time, but well worth the wait because the drama was high, to put an exclamation point on that Southwest series. And then we look at the Midwest, where Grand Rapids OLe would face off against Futsal Factory and gain their revenge from some regular season losses. They come back and make themselves a 3rd year straight finalist in the NFPL. They would go on to face Colorado Futsal Academy. Now, this great play was absolutely amazing from Grand Rapids and Colorado, and set up a really fun final. What was interesting was neither of these teams that earned the final hosted the final. in a bizarre decision. It looks like Ann Arbor, home of the commissioner Drew Ducker, was the host. Interesting decision for me, but both teams traveled there anyway. Grand Rapids OLe ultimately coming away with the victory. A lot of grumblings coming out of the Southwest, wondering what it would be like to host that thing in the Southwest, how that changes the tables, and what is the future look like for that. But again, your Grand Rapids OLe team, of course, a fan favorite for me, as you guys know here on the channel, they come away with their second title in 3 years. Again, their third final in a row, and they are your champions, with absolute standout Gabe Villagomez being the MVP of the league. He put his fingerprints all over this match. He's committed to Western Michigan University for his college career, so he's got great things ahead of him as well, and a very competitive team in the Big East for soccer, the Western Michigan team, as I recall. So they're going to be fantastic. You saw Fabian dealing with some adversity with his team early on as they went down 2-0, but you never count out Grand Rapids OLe. They were able to turn that thing around and ultimately win the game. As usual, calm, cool, collected, team sticking to the plan, just sticking to the trust of each other and knowing each other so well as this team does. Literally generations of players coaching that next generation of players that then plays with them in the roster. They've known each other since they were kids. It's going to be really hard to beat that chemistry, even with the firepower that Colorado brought. Some amazing, amazing goals from Colorado during this match, and some really great talent and flair coming out of this team. The year had some great play the whole way around, but inconsistency was very, very clear throughout the league in the form of organization. It was very clear to me that there were limited volunteers, and I got to see this firsthand behind the scenes with Luke on the channel as he tried to set up the streams for us to enjoy. A lot of fans calling for better from the NFPL in the chats. You know, I was tempted for this video to go back through the chat replays and pull some snapshots of this, but you guys can go back and look for it yourselves. It's in just about every single stream. The issues we have is the limited number of volunteers. There were a couple of streams, including the playoffs, that we got to see what hired help looks like to farm that out and get that help with cameras and announcers, and the quality of that was so much better. We really need to see more to push this forward and make a better product for people to enjoy and make us look more legitimate as a league in the United States. But it's clear that that's an issue. You know, and the other issue is what it does to the stream quality. A lot of fans calling out NFPL, calling out those of us that are volunteering as streamers, asking for better, saying this is a top league in the United States. It should be represented so. I think what a lot of these fans don't understand is, yes, it is a top league in the United States, but that does not mean it is a professional league. It is still run by volunteers. We still have someone's mom behind the camera. We still have someone's mom behind the communications, or dad trying to help us out, or maybe a player from an academy running a camera. That has always been the issue, is the manpower in futsal. A lot of the people that are really entrenched in it wear a lot of hats, are involved in a lot of projects, and you have to look no further than the commissioner of this league to see that. The commissioner of the league, Drew Ducker, is not only the commissioner, he's a player for Futsal Factory. He's the owner of that team. You can see him coaching on the sideline as well when he's not playing, as well as running a youth academy. Unfortunately, what that means is what we see as a product is maintained and not cultivated. And I think that's a big issue here in the United States. I think it's a big reason why previous leagues have failed, is there's not that one person that's dedicated as a neutral source to run the league and look out for its best interest, so the team owners can look out for what's in their best interest, and that's their teams, or possibly, in the case of this commissioner, his time on the court. I don't see the future of the NFPL being very bright in its current state. I hate to say that because it's a league I've followed for several years and I'm very, very invested in emotionally. But the reality is this: we've lost 6 teams. Several of those teams that I've talked to in the offseason, as I've mentioned in previous videos, financial issues is the main culprit, whether it be their own or the cost of entering this league and getting very little back in return other than the scheduling of those games. On top of that, you have travel concerns. Some of the teams that have been involved in this league have stretched travel to several hours of drive time, even upwards to 9 when there was a Minnesota team involved in Joy Athletic. A very exciting team that made for very exciting gameplay and brought out the best in other teams, but there is that added expense that adds a layer of complexity to the issues of these divisions. I can't really see where this league is going from here. I just don't see the future of it. It's semi-pro at best, and really I think it's an amateur league with the exception of maybe a couple teams that are paying their players. we're just not there to get it to that next level. I call on the NFPL. I beg, please, somebody in that organization, whether it be the commissioner himself or any of his business partners, needs to take the reins, focus just on the league, and grow it organically from there. We need to find a way to mentor these teams and help them grow. We can't do that when we are also on the court or on the sidelines. I just really am concerned by not only that, but the loss of 2 divisions right away after growth. We're going too fast and not focusing. Things like the women's division that came and gone in a single season and was completely mismanaged, by the way, during that one season. The Rising Stars division that was highlighted in interviews as well as articles on their own website as being this great new league that would see several gameplays. We saw one weekend, and then it fizzled out because of the teams that had to back out from those obligations in the following season. It's time to decide who wants to be in charge in the NFPL, and it's time to decide what this league wants to be moving forward. Otherwise, it's going to join a graveyard of several other failed leagues that are just littering the history of futsal in the United States. That's my opinion to wrap this thing up. I'm curious what you guys have to say about it. First of all, congratulations before I wrap this up to Grand Rapids OLe on another championship victory. Congratulations to Colorado Futsal Academy for their fantastic season and all the other teams that performed well during this season. I look forward to seeing what the future of these teams is. What are you guys looking forward to moving forward? And what do you think needs to happen in U.S. futsal at a league level to cultivate some growth and some sustainability for the teams and the leagues in the United States? Until I hear from you in the comments below, as always, don't forget, play with your soul.